My name is Sandra, and I'm responsible for diversity and inclusion at Axel Group. We are recording this video today to share with you an overview on Mental Health Awareness Week, a very first event of that type that took place in the first week of November. Our objectives for that event were to create awareness about the importance of mental health in the company, in the workplace, to normalize the difficult conversation about mental health, to bring them to the table of the teams and departments. We wanted to spread the knowledge about mental health, but also provide support, useful tools and techniques for you during those difficult, turbulent times of a COVID-19 pandemic. And last but not least, we really link mental health with diversity and inclusion. We realize that if we fail in creating inclusive workspaces, inclusive environments, inclusive culture, your mental health will suffer. So that's our motivation for making Mental Health Awareness Week at Axel Group. What happened in that week? We had 6 different sessions, 4 in English, 2 in German. We had over 600 people who registered for sessions from over 30 different countries. So that was a truly international event. To provide a safe space to the participants, we decided to don't record those sessions. And therefore, today we are having this video recording to answer, let's say, to the public, some of the most common questions asked in that week. And today I have with us Catherine, who is the business psychologist and licensed psychotherapist with huge experience in working with business and business leaders. Hi, Catherine. Thank you for making time and being with us today.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Yeah, let's dive into questions. What is the first question that came up?
So thank you, Catherine. And we divided our questions into certain categories based on the interest and the question participants asked during the live sessions last week. And first of them, it's around the topic of depression. It was a very common topic, very common question asked during our workshops. So perhaps we can just start with the general introduction to what depression is, and then we jump into the specific questions.
Sure. So depression is one of the mental health disorders that is an official diagnosis in the International Classification of Disorders, so called ICD-10. And the diagnosis is normally been done, or normally you will get a diagnosis not only because something is like not normal, but rather because you're really suffering from it, or you're hindered to live the life that you planned, either work or private life is affected, or having relationships, or all of them. And the diagnosis of depression is covering different parts of symptoms. For example, the loss of interest, feeling very sad, or even feeling empty. When depression is very severe, it can also happen that somebody can't do anything anymore. It's not only just being sad. It can mean that that you just feel like, I don't want to do anything. I lost my interest in things I normally like. It can affect a lot of physical things in your body, like sleep, that you have sleeping disorders, that you lose weight because you don't have appetite. Some people gain weight because they have more appetite. Normally, it affects also our sex life in a way that we don't, that we don't have fun anymore. So it's a variety of symptoms, and normally it's something that has to be there for at least 4 weeks. So that if you think about the last 4 weeks, and you can say, well, that describes my feelings for most of the days in the last 4 weeks, then it's likely that it's a depression, but of course it's also important if maybe something happened in your life and you're grieving because you lost someone. So it depends also on the circumstances.
So you indirectly addressed the question on when you can start looking into the help for your symptoms. And there is a question from one of the participants asking if it's possible to have depression if you're still laughing and smiling.
Definitely. I think, I mean, it's not a stable feeling. The longer someone has a depression and the more severe it is, or the more chronic in a way, it can sometimes affect every moment in life, but normally it's not a stable feeling. It can be that you have a very funny morning and you feel like nothing has happened, and then suddenly in the afternoon you enter your kitchen and you feel super sad or super depressed. So it can vary, and yes, so it doesn't mean if somebody's still smiling or having fun that it's not a depression. And some people really explain that they feel it's a mask that they are wearing when being in public or with friends. So some people are really good in hiding it, and it doesn't mean they want to do it, but it's sometimes really something that our mental health is doing to pretend that we are okay.
So you mentioned those 4 weeks as a fair indicator that something's wrong. Are there any techniques or any tools that can help us decide or define whether it's something temporary versus a real depression? Is this something you can indicate here?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are some questions you could ask yourself that normally help us identify. So you could, for example, think about your interests. So have I lost the fun in things that I normally like? Do I still follow my interest, or is like do I feel like no, it's not fun anymore? Did I lose my energy? Do I think in a ruminating way? Do I think the same thoughts over and over again, and maybe it's even affecting my sleep? And do I, for example, also think that my life would be easier if it's just over, or do I think explicitly about even killing myself? Then that's obviously something to always take serious. It's not a forbidden thought, and most people that think about it don't do it. But of course, it's also a risk, and that's something to be taken serious. And by the way, it's always okay to see a therapist or talk to your general practitioner or another doctor just to talk about it. I mean, you don't have to know that you have a diagnosis. That's what also then therapists or doctors are for. So you can also just go there for a consultation and ask those questions and share your symptoms. That's also totally okay.
Definitely, we shouldn't be self-diagnosing ourselves, right? Last question in that topic. People are very curious how to distinguish between burnout and depression. Probably very often those topics are, or those illnesses are being confused or used in the same context. So if you could elaborate on that, we will be very grateful.
Sure. I mean, it's a very interesting topic since burnout is not yet a diagnosis. So whenever somebody says I'm being diagnosed with burnout, at the moment it means normally that there is a depression as diagnosis, and maybe it's like an add-on that it says burnout as well. So currently it's a bit in a pilot phase from a scientific view that we try out. Does it really add value? Is it really a distinct diagnosis? And that's not completely clear, but I think it will go into the direction that it becomes a diagnosis. Why is it important, and why do people feel it's two different things? Because people who have a burnout normally experience a phase of being super active, super engaged. like maybe they can't sleep because they are so attached to work, and they had a phase of a lot of energy. And with depression, people feel that depression is rather no energy, no interest in anything, being on the couch, not standing up. So it doesn't really fit to this moment that we have in our mind when we think about burnout. Also, burnout implies a little bit that there is a system or something else that is wrong, right? So it's a little, and it's also, I think it fits a little bit to our culture of self-optimization and of achieving something. In a culture of achievers, it's like it's a little bit, excuse me if that sounds weird, but a little bit like a medal that you won, right? I'm allowed to have a depression now because I've gone the extra mile before. So I think it excuses a little bit depression. While the word depression sounds for some people like it just happened, right? It's a bit more in the laziness corner. But from a professional view, there's not a huge difference. And even before, there was a diagnosis called agitated depression. And agitated depression means this kind of restlessness and being under pressure. Mm-hmm. But however, it's very important for some people that it is a depression and not a depression, that it is a burnout and not a depression. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's interesting because it tells a little bit about what we also have, what kind of image we have about ourselves, and if we are allowed to have a depression, or if it needs the label of burnout, so that we are allowed to be sick, for example.
So it sounds like depression is even more stigmatized in the society than burnout, because burnout is associated with hard work before, while depression it's a sign of weakness, according to many. I'm not stating the scientific fact, rather making an observation, right?
Yeah, and I would agree. Mm-hmm.
With that thought, you mentioned already the productivity, and I had the feeling that word productivity was everywhere in March and April when we were all in the Corona-19 lockdown. Everyone was coming with perfect advices how to stay productive, how to get the best out of your 8 hours working day. I had the feeling that internet was full of those golden thoughts, and we are still kind of evaluating the impact of the corona on the mental health of the society. Nevertheless, we already can observe certain impacts, right? And we had a lot of interest in that during our workshops. So perhaps we can start with a very broad question. How individually we can make a better of our difficult times which we've never experienced before, be it corona now, we don't know what will come in the future, but what is your professional advice for individuals to take a good care of ourselves?
Yeah, I feel that the problem is that there are so many great tips, 10 tricks in home office, and I know 5 things you need to do to take care of your mental health. So whenever I'm asked such questions, I don't want to dig into the same hole in a way, because I feel it can even do more harm if I would just say, 5 tricks and then you're super happy. Because if you then aren't, it feels like you're doing it wrong. You're the only one not getting it. So yes, I would say yes, there are people who are maybe not suffering at the moment. There are some people who say, well, I'm happier than before because I don't have to commute. I'm closer to my family. I spend more time in nature because I don't have to be in the city. And then that's great. And then maybe you don't need special tricks, or maybe you need something to detach from work or to organize your home office. And others might really suffer at the moment, and maybe even because they spend more time with their family. So some people really say, well, it's if you had a conflict before that was maybe not there, or you looked away from it, now being very close together, it can suddenly be very explosive. And there I feel it's important to talk to people you trust and open up about you not being okay, and to allow yourself to not be okay, and to not start directly with what can I do so that it goes away, because often there's this cathartic moment of just sharing something, and then you don't need to even do something else than just sharing it or just allowing it to yourself, because it takes a lot of energy to always try to get away from feelings. So it might also be the best tip to admit when you're not okay, and maybe even seek professional help, or to just talk to friends. However, I think we to allow ourselves to feel what we feel, it helps to change the way we think about ourselves. Often we are very strict with ourselves. We are very judgmental, much more than we are with friends. So thinking that a good friend would tell us the same story, how would we react? What would we tell them, if anything? Or would we just listen and hug them? So it can also help to change chairs, for example. So think about your feelings and then change the chair and look at the one that you've been just sitting on, and imagine that is a good friend talking to you. And I think what also helps is to think about differences. When have I felt better? Is there any day in the week that makes me feel better, and what makes the difference, and how can I bring that into other days? So I think we are always the expert of ourselves, and it's not others in the internet telling us what will make us happy. There are some scientific facts, like, okay, yes, being in the sunlight helps, being active helps, being thankful helps. So some people have a thankfulness diary, or practice being thankful while showering. So thinking about one thing that makes you happy while you shower. And but you will find a lot of those tips in the internet. But normally you don't find something like, well, it's a shitty time and it's okay to not be okay. Yeah, so I don't want to have too many easy tricks mentioned here.
I think it's a good takeaway. Like, it's okay not to be okay, and be good with yourself, right? Like self-love and self-compassion as a starting point. Here's one more question regarding Corona impact, especially this move to the remote work. And people were very curious on how to connect with people on the peer level, but also as a leader with the employees when the real face-to-face connection is impossible and we are all in the virtual reality. So any advice for that?
I think it makes sense to have some rules, for example, also on the camera thing. So when do we have one meeting where everybody has the camera on? Because it is very hard for a team leader or colleagues to recognize if somebody is not okay when the camera is off, and it might also feel disconnected. However, to save screen time and to not stare at our screens all the time, it's also good if you have meetings where you know that you can just go for a walk and join by phone, or even explicitly schedule meetings where you go for a walk and have the phone, and maybe don't even talk about work or tasks. So that can also help to have some rules and to be a bit more clear how the meeting would look like. And then there are some best practices that I already shared in the workshop that help us in the team that I work in. So it's like a personal recommendation. I feel that anything that is a bonding moment can support. For example, we send a parcel around, so there is a parcel moving from household to household, and you can pick one item and put another item in. We thought about starting something similar with a painting, so sending a painting around with some colors in it, and then when we're back in the office, this painting that everybody has contributed to will be part of our office. So being a bit creative in this, how, what can we've started sending postcards to each other. Once we've sent a flower to someone, and what was also fun was our dress up Wednesday. For 12 weeks, we dressed up every team meeting in different themes. Everybody could choose a theme once, and we've been dressed up as zoo animals, as our favorite holiday destination, as sayings. That was also fun. I love the sayings. and it's also fun in an international team if you dress up in a saying that only your language knows, and then you can explain it to others. It's also fun. You will learn a lot about other countries or languages. And some companies start virtual wine tasting or chocolate tasting, or I've heard that Telecom just had a concert for their employees, so they organized like a music concert live stream. I know, I mean, that doesn't make sense for a small team. That might be too much budget, but thinking of ways to experience something together. I think it's about the emotional moment apart from work that you can do together.
All great ideas, and I already have initial thoughts how to bring it to my team. Thank you for sharing, Katrin. We ask, or I've asked you already, how can we take a better care of ourselves? But then I would like to flip the coin and see your advice on the point of helping others when we see other people struggling. As a colleague or as a leader, what can we do to help people in the right way, not being seen as not respecting someone's privacy or being dragged into those problems?
First of all, I feel that most people don't think that asking is too intimate. There might be a few people, but I think in general people admire to be asked and to be seen. And you can always ask start by asking if asking is okay. You can always start saying, Sandra, I wanted to ask you how you are, and like really how you are, if that's okay. I know that we are not really friends, but I'm thinking about you, and I wanted to know if you want to talk about it. Or you could describe what, for example, you've recognized. Just describing something kind of objective, saying, well, Sandra, I've recognized that in the last 2 meetings you haven't had your camera on. Normally you have, or you have been there late, or I don't know, you seemed sad, and not saying you are sad or you are stressed, but to me you seemed stressed. Is that true, or is it just a wrong perception? And then starting a conversation from there. So explaining what you have seen or what it has done to you. It made me worry, and I was wondering if I may ask if that's fine for you.
So avoid assumption, just ask, and ask with the good intention, the right level of like caring of others, not curiosity that only serves you in that case. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect summary. And sometimes people are afraid that they would make things worse if they ask. And yes, it can happen that suddenly somebody, bursts into tears. That can happen, yes. But so you might also make sure that the moment is correct, so that somebody really has the chance to answer. Because some people feel like if you now ask, crying. So are you prepared for that? Is the frame okay? I think that's important. And some people are afraid to ask very specific questions, such as about suicidal thoughts. Am I making it worse? But there is no question that make things worse. It's in 99.9%, it's helpful to talk about it. And I think it's important if somebody mentions, yes, I'm going through a tough time or I'm having a mental illness, to consider the one in front of you expert of themselves, of their diagnosis, and to just ask, okay, what are the effects on work, or how does it feel like for you? How would you explain depression? And not just thinking that you know what an anxiety disorder is, for example.
Definitely. So ask. Last question to conclude our short Q&A meeting today. It's about neurodiversity. At our team at Global DNI at Axel Springer, we are trying to take a holistic view on diversity, not just focusing on one of the aspects, be it gender, for example, rather taking a full picture. And neurodiversity is also part of those dimensions, diversity dimensions that we want to embrace with our work. But we also know that this is a topic that is new to many. So perhaps we could quickly start with explaining to our audience what neurodiversity is, and with that also have some ideas on how to address neurodiversity in the workplace.
Sure. I mean, it's, as you said, something that forms as I think the neurodiversity community, people who self-identify as neurodiverse, I feel it's still in a storming and forming phase. So there are no clear cutoffs saying this person is not neurodiverse anymore, because, for example, for me, we are all in a way neurodiverse or mentally diverse, because I mean, what stresses me doesn't have to stress you, and I might have different triggers than you. But however, neurodiversity normally means the spectrum of, so when performance is different, or if somebody has a very, like a hero strength, but a typical other performance point is more difficult. Let's say communication and empathy for teammates is difficult for me because I'm in the autism spectrum. So it's a bit harder for me to understand nonverbal communication, or maybe certain types of jokes. Some people say, well, I don't really get ironic jokes. And for me, it has to be super clear. I'm just focusing on the facts. And that, of course, is a bit of a different performance. And sometimes we're not used to the different performance. And we would say you're not a team player, or you need to work on your communication style. And neurodiversity is trying to say, well, couldn't we be a little bit more open to what performance looks like, and what team players should do? And maybe we should look a bit more into which task fits to whom. And it's also, for example, considering, do we really need to be typo free, or isn't it okay that not everyone is perfect in writing? And is that also okay, maybe? And does that really tell something about my performance?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Catherine. That was very interesting, and we really appreciate your sessions last week. And we are almost certain that we will be building on this experience next year. But also, we don't want to make a care of our mental health a one time per year event. It should be something that we are looking into every single day, the same way as we take care of our physical health, our routines. So thank you again for joining us last week and for being here today with us. And we encourage all the people who had a chance to watch this recording or attend the sessions last week to reach out to diversity@axelspringer.com in case of any further questions. Thank you. Stay healthy.